Remember what I said about the euro and pound in my last video? Everybody is calling them weak, but the data, the actual economic data, was saying they are strong. Yesterday, the market opened and both the euro US dollar and the pound US dollar pulled back a significant portion of Friday's drop. So the question now is, was that just a correction? Or is the data telling us there is more upside coming? Because we got fresh numbers yesterday and I need to walk you down through what this means for us today. Do well to hit the subscribe button and share this video with someone who you feel might find this information valuable to their trading journey. Without further ado, let's head right into it. In the last video, I noticed a flaw on the dashboard, so I made some changes. We were only able to see the overall and the last 14 days, but we were not looking at specifically only the key information. Now, this is the funny thing I realized. When you start looking at only the key information, the data, or rather the results and the perspective you'll be looking at the market is quite different from looking at all the data combined. Why? Because by the time you combine all the data, obviously a lot of scores are going to be nullified, reduced, or amplified. Let's take a look at what that is showing us today. Take a look at the new dashboard I have. You notice we have some extra changes. We have a new thing called key news. What are these key news, if you should ask? Well, key news, for example, we're talking about aggregating only things like CPI, PPI, PCE, inflation indexes, nothing about the central bank anyway, but every other like major key news specifically only. That is what this particular key index is meant for. So when you see it, key news, you know we're dealing with inflation data, the key inflation data, the key economic data, and the key jobs data. These three things are what matters the most when it comes to the data releases. They are the main depths. Now let's take a good look at today. Today we have the overall saying Australian dollar is still weak overall. Now overall, every damn news in its entirety. In the last 14 days put together, well, it's still weak, right? Still weak, but not that terrible. However, if you look at the key news, right? The key news is saying that the Australian dollar has like absolute strength, meaning the key factors, the main key news when it comes to the Australian dollar are actually bullish. But every other thing besides those key news are not so good, right? They're not so good. Looking at the card, we have a similar stance right here. I'm going to select the card for it to be center and forward. We notice this card is losing strength. Even in the key news, it is literally weak. We have the Swiss franc, which is also having similar situation, though the overall data is quite okay. Then we have the euro, which as of last week, I remember saying was really strong. But right now, as you can see, it is also still strong, gaining real strength in its last release of key news. The British pound, we have very similar situation, more like flat line situation. The pound is more of should I say on the neutral sides of stance right now. Then we have the Japanese yen, which its key metrics are not so good, but overall and in the last 14 days it is just above the average, slightly above. Now we have the New Zealand dollar, which has been doing absolutely phenomenal. Across all board, every damn news, it has literally put itself on the top spot. And last but not least, we have the US dollar, which overall, in overall news, that is every single news put together, it is at 53%. The overall currency stance is at 42%, meaning in the last 14 days is at 42%. However, the key metrics of job, inflation, and economic activity is literally printing good strands. So let's take a good look at just the key information, because this is the part that a lot of traders actually trade with the most. It means by key stance, you should be looking to buy the Australian dollar, euro, and the US dollar, as well as the New Zealand dollar. So these are currencies you should be looking to buy if the news remains good, right? Because news is released every day. Then currencies you should be looking to sell is the CAD and the Swiss franc and the Japanese yen. You should be looking to short these currencies if the news remains the same. Now, the last thing you want to work on right now is the British pound. You should hold back your trades when it comes to the British pound, because it has the tendency to fall into any of the directions instantly. It's quite neutral. You should be careful around there. Now, take note, this is not financial advice. I'm only telling you you should be, because this is my own calculation and this is the way I see the news, right? It's not financial advice. Do not use this and go run into trades. Do your due diligence, do your own research, look at what I'm showing you, confirm with the actual economic data, and think about it yourself. You can ask an advisor or somebody for references and explanations. Moving on to the pair comparison. Now, the pair comparison is where you would notice that if we should look out for British pound pairs, right? Pairs where British pound is involved in. I'm going to slowly have to pick them out one after the other because I don't have like a clear filter for all of that. But you can see that these pairs where the British pound is like a metric, you notice they are not varying too far, except for the British pound against the Canadian dollar and the British pound against the Japanese yen. But they are not varying so far away from the center. They are literally quite close to the center, if you notice, except on the key comparison where they stand out real good. So this is why I said the British pound is something you should be quite careful of. But then again, we need to look at the next guy, which is the euro. That is where a lot of miracles are happening. Now, if I filter out for just the euro pairs, these are all the euro pairs. Do you notice that they are all leaning into net neutral / bullish stance, meaning the strength the euro currently has is literally outstanding so many things. Going into the charts to go buy the euro right now, to go sell on the euro right now, is quite a risky move in my opinion. This is something I see as like really risky. We're going to look at the charts today and we're going to look at what may possibly happen when it comes to the euro against the British pound and the rest. Now, heading into the individual markets, we don't need to look at the details. I just want to show you another side of the dashboard that has like real good information for people to use now. We're going to look at something I call table view. This is where I'm able to look at it like a table, just like the way we looked at it in Excel. There's so much color. I don't know if you have like, there are people who have eye problems with colors. They tend to colors affect your eyes, so I think this might be too flashy for them. That's why I have it as a separate table and I have the charts to be able to look at. But let's take a look at a deep dive into the recent news released yesterday. So the news released yesterday was 16th. We're going to look at each and every one of them. For the Australian dollar, the news release was, this morning. So the Australian dollar released their current central bank rate, and it is still at 4. This is basically 4%. The numbers are not written in percentages here because I can't have percentages mixed with numbers. But it's currently 4%. There was no change to their central bank stance, though we're going to have the central bank review at the last end of the video. Then we have the Canadian dollar. We had news from the Canadian dollar yesterday. I'm going to set up the news that are not like key. I'm going to be able to separate the key news and not the key news for you, so you see. So these are the not so key news, but they are key. They are important also, but not the key sets of the news. We have the housing stats, which is bullish. The CPI, common CPI year over year, saying bearish. So the inflation, you can see here, if we filter for just inflation, you can see clearly that their not so key inflation data is printing a more bearish stance. But if you put it on the key, you can now see how that literally relates to what the key news is going to be. If you go back and let's say a lot of these things were bullish, obviously you will find either one of these bullish. In fact, actually you will find the month over month bullish. But as you can see, all the data here is telling you there were more negative stance in terms of inflation release for the Canadian dollar yesterday. When we have the economic activities where they don't have any key news, but the small news is saying that they are kind of slightly flatlined, if they should say. They are slightly flatlined when it comes to economic activity. The housing stats is good, however, but their new motors vehicle sales is bearish. Why? How does this even affect people? How do you use this as a metric to measure things? Well, when people have like large amount of money, a lot to spend, they end up buying cars. People are not buying cars, so what does that mean? People are not ready to spend money to buy expensive items like cars, meaning people are spending money on more important things. That clearly says probably people are losing cash to spend. Spending is reducing. This is going to affect spending later. When you start to see spending data, you would most likely see a bearish move because they are coming from a point where they were buying expensive things. So let's move on to the next market. We have the euro. The euro only had a not so important news yesterday, which is their reserve asset total from the central bank, telling us about what's left in their reserve. And from their reserve, they have a bullish stance. They had more cash left in their reserve. For the British pound, we only had inflation data yesterday, and the inflation data was all about house price index month over month and year over year. So month over month, they've got like good month over month, right? The last month compared to this month, there seems to be some small growth, but year over year, I mean, this time frame March against last year's time frame of March, they are not meeting what they had as of last year. Then we have the Japanese yen. Only economic data was released. Tertiary industrial activity index. So this measures like the bigger industries and how their how their activities are going. And right now, basically, Japanese is saying their industrial activities has reduced. The tertiary industrial activities has reduced. Then we have the New Zealand dollar, which had only not the key news this time. They had FPI, which is a consumer confidence index. That means how confident are people in the economy, right? It's quite bearish. The result is bearish. And then they have their offshore holdings by central bank coming out bullish, meaning they have more offshore holdings, or rather they increase their offshore holdings in the time frame when this report is being collected. Now, for US dollar, we had lots of not so like in-depth news also. We had bonds, confidence index, and economic activity. So we're going to start with the bonds. The bonds data says the 3 months bond bill, 3 months bill auction, and the 6 months bill option is becoming a bearish. And then we have the confidence index. Confidence index is how confident are these people in the economy, right? NAHB housing market index, saying how's the housing situation. Well, it is bullish. So it means if more of the confidence index coming out is bullish, it means people are getting confidence to spend. And if people are getting confidence to spend, what happens next is simply the economic activity is going to grow. If economic activity grows at a reasonable amount, inflation will also grow also. So it works like that. So the economic activity, what do we see? Just like I said, we're now seeing more bullish than bearish. We have the NY Empire State Manufacturing Index saying it's quite bearish. They are not manufacturing enough, or rather they could not manufacture enough. The industrial production also has similar situation. However, the manufacturing production, the industry production, now you can see the industrial production year over year was not good, but month over month, like year over year is as of February last year compared to February this year. They are not doing as much as they were doing in February last year. However, but month over month is as of February against January this year, they are doing better than what they did in January. So take a look at the perspective from the short-term angle, which is by month, and then the long-term angle, which is year over year. Where were we last year at this time? Then looking at capacity utilization rates is bullish. They are beginning to use the capacity well enough, and manufacturing production month over month is also bullish. So this is all that came out yesterday. Yesterday regarding the news and the economic activities. And from what you can see here, one particular currency is literally printing one of the best things here. You can see the New Zealand dollar had a very good stance. I'm going to take this back to since we passed through weekend, I'm going to take this back to 5 days, and I want you to observe. Do you notice that only the New Zealand dollar has been releasing news every day recently? But if you notice, the New Zealand dollar had its own news come up, go down, and go up. But looking at it, the not so key news, it moved like this. But the key news, we had a currency like the Canadian dollar, its key metrics, right? Key news dropped. Also, I didn't see this employment data. This was last week, 13th. The job opening for the US employment seems like it's going good, even though unemployment rate is quite, it's moving upwards. So this is everything that has to do with the fundamental aspect of the market. So what does this tell us in terms of the charts, the technical aspects? So we're going to filter for the euro, the British pound, and the US dollar, right? The US dollar. I had a mistake on the New Zealand. So when we filter these 3 pairs specifically, you notice that, let's take the not so important news, right? The not so important news from Friday till yesterday. We noticed the The pink one here, the purplish one, is the British pound. I'm going to have to expand this so you see it clearly. You can see the British pound gained, the US dollar gained, also the euro gained. But the US dollar has the best gains, followed by the euro, followed by the British pound. Meaning even against the US dollar and the euro, it means you should be going more for the US dollar currently in terms of just following the news, right? The US dollar seems to have like a better stance compared to the other two of them. While for the euro and the British pound, you should be looking to buy in that market, right? You should be looking to buy. So let's take a look at the chart today. So again, yesterday I said the market did the same thing, right? And you can clearly see, I don't even need to explain myself much, just by looking at the chart right now. Yesterday, you can see that gain from yesterday, and today, just like I said, you should be looking for more of the US dollar, which you can see right now, the market is painting downward. So it could be it was just a correction, right? It was just a correction. I am looking more at this range because this was like the fight space in the market. This is where rejections occurred the most. And seeing that price breaks through that rejection, price is most likely going to come back, retest, and run even further. Let's take a good look at it on the 1 hour time frame. This is the British pound US dollar, and you can see how price strongly returned upwards and strongly pushed downwards this morning. But we are hoping to see what the market could do by around 8, 9, 10 to see which direction the market is majorly looking out for. For us to start hoping for upsides, we want the markets to break through levels like this. This is the 133, breaking through levels like the 133, breaking through levels like the 134s, breaking through levels like this is the 1345s. So if price is breaking through this level, we're having like a daily comeback. But where we are going to look at the market like, okay, we are now really in the upside, is when price starts to break out from the 134 levels into the 135 levels, 1.35 levels. This is where we'll start to see, okay, this market has clearly started shifting into the daily upside. So it takes time. It's not going to be a one-day thing. It could be a one-day thing. I mean, markets is unpredictable, right? It could be a one-day thing, but it's most likely not going to be a one-day thing. We're just going to have to watch over time, see what the market is doing. But currently, the market is generally bearish, in my opinion. Generally bearish. It belongs to the US dollar based on the news release for the British pound and the US dollar. Now, for the euro against the US dollar, let's move into that market and see what we have. We should have similar situations. As you can see, the daily is having similar situations. We had the pullback from yesterday, and we are hoping on the 1 hour, we are hoping for angles like 1.156 and angles like 1.64. So angles like this, we say, okay, finally the market is beginning to move into a bullish stance, if it's going to go into a bullish stance, right? And then we expect it to break through levels like this one right here, which is around the 1.6 mass. As soon as we see price moving back into the 1.7 areas, 1.17 areas, we expect a more bullish stance on the market until the fundamental says otherwise, right? Until the fundamental says otherwise. Now, moving on to the euro against the British pound. Euro against the British pound. Well, I'm expecting possible upside. I'm not banking it. I have, as you can see here, I do have a trade running on my broker, Vantage Broker. This is the trades. These are my trade histories. Looking for the logs that shows my account summary. I'm looking for it. How do I find that? Yeah. So inside the orders, I'm currently in the trade buying the British pound, the euro against the British pound, and hoping for a small upside all the way back to 0.87. It may work, it may not work. This is trading, this is reality. We're hoping for price to come back here and give us a good shattering. But personally, I don't know where price will go to. I'm using a totally different strategy, a Bollinger Band mean reversion strategy, and this is what I'm doing right here. So I'm simply trading to see on the 1 hour, right? On the 1 hour, I'm not really trading this market. Sorry, it's on the 4 hours. I'm not really trading this market to reach all the way up here. This is just an arbitrary target. It's not really a real target. But all I just need is for price to move and to simply close above the central line of the Bollinger Band, and then I can just hold my trade, trailing it till wherever I can get to. So this is like an almost 2 to 1. I may get 1 or 2 probably, but it's not something to say I'm going and it's going to work. So this is it about the market today, and we are hoping for good upsides for those who wants to buy the US dollar. We're looking for opportunities and hoping the market goes. I'd like to tell you thank you for watching this video. YouTube thinks you may like to watch this once around here, so kind of hit the buttons and follow through. See you all in the next one. Peace.